Okay, that was good stuff that we had with Suzanne there, and but as everybody saw with how we named the this event, how to add 7 years to your life without a gym membership. So we kind of named that like a little tongue in cheek, but there's definitely something behind that. And Richard Leider, he's going to get into it here. And I'm going to go through his bio here. I'm going to read some of this because I don't want to miss any of it, mess it up. But Richard is the founder of Adventure. It's the purpose company where the purpose is to help unlock the power of purpose and answer that question in people's lives. He's an international bestseller of 12 books, including 3 bestsellers, and he's sold over 1 million copies. So I knew that was a pretty impressive stat, but I wanted to look it up and see what percent of authors actually sell over 1 million copies. And the percent is 0.003%. So this man is something. And so we're excited to have him here with us today. And he is the purpose ambassador for the Blue Zones project. So I don't know if anybody's seen the Netflix documentary on the Blue Zones, but the author of the Blue Zones, Bill Boutonniere, he makes a comment in there that if you could take a pill, a vitamin, that would add 7 years to your life, would you do it? And I think the answer is, I would start tomorrow, right? And Richard, he's going to talk to us about that and and that's where we came up with the title for the event, with how to add 7 years to your life without a gym membership. And Richard's going to talk to us about how to add purpose in your life that's going to add 7 years plus to your life. So let's put it together for Richard Leider.
Thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm here from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I used to say, even my Uber driver said, "It's cold there, isn't it?" And I said, "Not anymore." I used to say, we have excellent snow removal. We call it July. Not anymore. We bypassed winter this year, as you did in some ways as well. So I want to talk about unlocking the power of purpose, something that I've studied now for 5 decades, and I want to share with you some insights that I hope will be practical and useful for you. And first of all, I want to say, how many of you have a cell phone? Okay. The reason I ask this is one of my colleagues, when you call him, his name is Scott Miller, when you call him and you leave a voicemail, it says this: at the sound of the tone, please leave your answer to life's 2 eternal questions. Who are you and what do you want? So I want to talk about the who are you and what do you want. And I want to start by saying, first of all, that what we want, or who we are and what we want, basically gets down to 2 things. We want to belong and live a long life, and we want to matter. We want to remain relevant during our lives. So belonging and mattering. And I say that purpose is fundamental. That's why I'm on this program. It's fundamental to health, to healing, to happiness, and ultimately to longevity, as they say here, without a gym membership. Well, that's okay, to have one or not have one. So it is fundamental, and it can add. Dr. Becca Levy at Yale did the most recent study of many studies that are out there, showing that your mindset about aging, which I'm going to talk about because purpose ultimately is that mindset about life and aging. Your mindset is what determines longevity, that 7.5 to 10 year number in certain ways. So that's one thing. It's not a luxury for certain people at a certain age or a certain income level or this type of thing. It is fundamental. And it's about unlocking, not finding. It's not out there to be found. It's in here to be brought forth and manifested in certain ways. I always say that I live in a place not too far from the headquarters for 3M company. And I always say, and I gave a speech at 3M recently, and they said it was so cool that I made this up for them. But I've written about the 3 M's: money, medicine, and meaning are fundamental to us. Money meaning enough, and what do we hear, and what did we just hear? The future belongs to the learners, not the knowers. Things keep changing. I was a learner. I sat back there the whole morning listening and taking notes and learning, so thank you for the tutorial while I was here. So money is important, and it comes in, all these shapes. Medicine is not just about medicine, it's about health. You all know people who have perhaps enough of the first M, money, taken care of, and the second M, health, but they don't have a reason to get up in the morning, and they don't do so well. And people who have meaning, but maybe not enough health and other things, or money. So all three are fundamental, and that's why I'm privileged to be on this program. So let's talk about how to go about this unlocking process. So Joe said about the pill. I did a PBS special. I don't know if you watch PBS, but I did a PBS special a few years ago. It was shown in about 400 cities across the country. And I got a chance then, while it was a fundraiser for your local PBS station, and you would get my book and you would get this. And then I would go out to certain cities. And what I learned out there was whole families would show up for these events. And I went, what's going on here? And they said, well, we're all in transition. We're all in a what's next moment of some sort in our lives. The grandparents, parents, the kids, et cetera, even the grandkids. So, people go through transitions, and that's why it's important to get a yearly checkup, health checkup as well as Medicare and financial checkup. And so when I was doing this PBS special, PBS sent me around the country to interview neurologists who are looking at purpose in the brain, purpose in dementia, purpose in different factors. And one of those people, his name is Dr. Majid Fatoui at Johns Hopkins, put this pill up. And he said, just like Joe said, but filling in it just a little bit further, he said, this pill will not only give you greater longevity, but will increase the quality of your life, even if you have Alzheimer's at certain levels. It will reduce macroscopic stroke by 41% and will help you with sleep apnea. Would you buy it? So this guy's holding up the pill for me. I said, well, yeah, but does it exist, and who would buy it? I mean, how much would it cost? And he said, it's free. It's purpose. We now can measure purpose in the brain. And we can know, and it has to do with your mind, not only your health habits, but your mindset. And so what does that do, or what does that mean in certain ways? Well, I learned a whole lot about the brain and science and purpose in the brain. And one of the people who I teach with, her name is Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn. 10 years ago, she won the Nobel Prize for Medicine, Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn from San Francisco. And what she won it for was something called the telomere effect. Have you ever heard of a telomere? How many people here have heard of it? Well, only a handful of people, but you have millions of telomeres in your body. Every single chromosome in your body has a telomere. It's like the shoelace. Now, he doesn't have them, I don't have shoelaces, but if you had a shoelace, that little plastic thing on the end, that's like on the end of all your chromosomes. When those telomeres grow or continue to be sizable, healthy size, you are healthier and you live longer. When those telomeres shrink for whatever reasons, you're not as well and you don't live as long. She learned and won the Nobel Prize for the telomere effect, which said mindset, purpose, has a lot to do with telomeres. Not just health and going to the gym, so to speak, but these sorts of things. And so you could look at all kinds of things related to core purpose. But let me just say that what is core purpose? I said money, medicine, and meaning. But here's the bottom line. Only 2 words. If you just remember these 2 words, which I'm going to come back to on several points here in the next short time, the 2 words are grow and give. What I've learned in 50 years of studying the power of purpose, and doing research on it, and speaking and coaching, etc., is if you get up in the morning, and that's purpose ultimately is why do you get up in the morning? If you don't have a reason, I'm giving you one right now. Get up to grow and give. And if you get up to grow and give every day, you're not having a purpose, you're living purposefully. Purpose is not a destination that you get to. Purpose is a path that travel, a direction. And so what influences that direction is what I would like to talk about with you. So the core purpose, grow and give. Okay, so what is your reason to rise? I write books. I love getting up every morning. I call it golden hour. Some people say to me that, oh, I'd love to be a writer. And I said, what's your practice? And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, if you're not practicing writing, you're a waiter, not a writer. And so what are you waiting for? But I get up every morning. I call it the golden hour. I did it this morning. And most of what I write doesn't go anywhere, but some of it does. And so the 4th edition of the Power of Purpose book comes out in December. 4 editions. And so it has 60% new content. The 3rd edition came out 8 years ago, and my publisher said, you got anything new to say? And I said, well, in the last 8 years, as I've aged, I'm now 80, I have learned a lot about through my own experience as well as my study, and I am still a bad word to use with anybody in this room. Oh, you're still writing? Oh, you're still trekking? Oh, you're still... Who gets to decide what the rules are about still? I'm still doing things that I love to do, and age is only a number when it comes to that. So what is your own reason to rise? I mentioned the book because I was in a bookstore in Denver recently. It's called The Tattered Cover. If you ever go, it's a beautiful independent bookstore. And I went to the desk where you walk into this old building, and there was a woman behind the information counter, and I said, can you tell me where the self-help section is? Of course, I'm looking for my own books there, but can you tell me where the self-help section is? And she looked at me and smiled, and she said, well, if I tell you, won't that defeat the whole purpose? So, this is not self-help 101 here. This is self-realization, trying to realize who are we authentically ourselves at this stage of life, and how do we help others, our partners and spouses and kids and grandkids, become their authentic selves and their healthier selves in certain ways. And so purpose is a verb. It's a verb, it's action. It's what we do, not just what we put on the wall or what we put in our obituary or whatever it is. It's a way of life. It's a way of living in certain ways. My favorite quote about purpose is from the American essayist E.B. White. He said this, he said, I arise in the morning, torn between the desire to savor life and to make a living and to savor life and to save a life. And so saving and savoring, what's wrong with that? Nothing. They're both great, but if it's all savoring, we call that being a narcissist. If you are saving, then it's the blend of belonging and mattering, which is in our DNA as human beings. You know, as was said many times today in the story about your father and your father-in-law, spoiler alert, you're here to serve. How you do that is what I want to talk about. How you do that, because you are an experiment of one. And they say this, and I heard it over and over again, you're an experiment of one. We're going to get you what you need. That's what I'm trying to do right now in terms of your own life. What is it, how do you belong, and how do you matter? There's nothing wrong with getting up and having a good cup of coffee in the morning if you like that, or something else. But then the question is, what are you going to do? There are 1,440 purpose moments in a day. 1,400 minutes. So if you look at a purpose moment, it's the reason or the way you can make a difference in one person's life that day, unsolicited and without, going out of your way to do so. So let's look at a little bit about how to do that. So what are the indicators of purpose? You saw the first slide. This is a baobab tree from Africa. I've been leading walking safaris in East Africa for 30 years. Now, I haven't done one since people say, do you still do them? Well, since COVID, I haven't been back. But I have created in-venture expeditions and learned from elders in Africa and others as we're doing what I call in-venturing. One of the people that I interviewed was a man named Kampala. He's from a hunter-gatherer tribe. They've been around about 100,000 years, but there's only 1,300 of them left in East Africa right now. About 400 that are living a pure hunter-gatherer lifestyle. I got a chance to go and do some tripping with these people. And one of the people I met was a guy in his 60s, which is quite old for a hunter-gatherer. His name is Kampala. And he's never been to Uganda, which is the town of Kampala, but we're talking now Tanzania, Serengeti Plains, where the Serengeti Plains dips. If you've ever seen it or been there yourself, you'd say that there's this baobab forest. That's a baobab tree. And they live in this baobab region below the Serengeti, where some of the early mankind things have been discovered. And so I'm interviewing him for a book I'm writing called Claiming Your Place at the Fire. And so Kampala is, he's kind of a little bored. And so he says, do you mind if I ask you a question? Can we just step out? And he speaks an ancient Click language. And I can speak some Swahili and he can't. So we get a translator in here and he says, Richard, do you know from a Hadza perspective, or your perspective, because you write all these books, right? And you're writing this book. He said, do you know what the two most important days in your life are? What would you say?
Birth and death.
Birth and death? That's what I said. And he kind of went, ugh. You came out here in a Land Rover. You're sleeping in that tent. I sleep around the fire or in this grass hut. And I said, well, what are the two most important days? And he said, birth, because of infant mortality and longevity in bush, is one of the most important days that you can survive to age 5. And second, the most important day is the day you determine why you were born. Now, I've studied this in universities, and here I am with a hunter-gatherer who's never been more than 50 kilometers from where we're sitting, and he says, we survived as hunter-gatherers through sharing. They're a total sharing culture. You could say serving. And us elders, he said, we are here to help the youngers to learn how to survive and to help us survive and to serve in certain ways. And so, and then I started to look at and think about, and by the way, the book is called Claiming Your Place at the Fire. And one of the things I noticed was in these ancient tribes, the wisest, not the oldest necessarily, the wisest of the elders sit the closest to the fire. And it's not just because they need to be warm. Well, that may be part of it. Why would they sit the closest to the fire? Because then others can lean in and listen and hear, and see them through the fire. So I started to say, well, what'll be my place at the fire? How do you determine that sort of thing? So there's some indicators about this purpose thing that come from thousands of years and current science and current studies and experiences. So let's talk about what are the 3 indicators of purpose. And I want to first say that there are 3 myths about purpose. Myth number 1 is you have to have a cause. You don't have to have a cause. You don't have to save the planet. You don't have to get up and volunteer or to join. You can do it right in where you live and how you live right now. I just said purpose moments, 1,440 purpose moments. You don't need a cause. You need a direction, an intention. And one of the things that I do and I share with you is I call it the 2-minute purpose practice. When you get up in the morning, take 2 minutes. And before you may have to go to the restroom, but that would be not what I'm, but don't go to your phone. Don't go to your computer right away. Pause. Secondly, take 3 deep breaths. Why? Because breathing centers you. When you take 3 deep breaths, it centers you inside yourself. And the third thing is set an intention for making a difference in one person's life today. Full stop, plain and simple. So, myth number 1, cause, no. Myth number 2 is it'll be revealed to you if you just get old enough or you wait. And purpose is a practice. It's something we do, and I'm going to share a couple practices. One I'm sharing right now is the morning intention. And so it's a practice that comes from living purposefully, not just having a purpose. Third myth is purpose is a luxury. And I've already mentioned what I said about that. It's not a luxury, it's fundamental. However, it needs practice. And so that's the myths. But so let's look at indicator of purpose number 1. I've already said experiment of 1. But when we look at presence, I look at your mindset around aging and your mindset around living on a day-to-day basis. For many years, I've interviewed people over the age of 65. I just did this again now with this 4th edition of this book, The Power of Purpose, coming out, asking them if they could live their life over again, what would they do differently? In addition to getting Medicare coaching earlier, which is very wise, they said these 3 things. Number 1, if I could live my life over again, I would be more reflective the next time around. Reflective means they would step back to see the big picture. And to see, and I said, well, when did you step back to see the big picture? And they often said, crisis. When I had to do it, could be a health crisis, could be a financial crisis, could be a relationship, could be a variety of things. But then that forced me to look at who am I and what do I want? And what do I need to do here? Type of thing. And they said, I wish I would have learned to be more reflective. What we find now is many, many people, not just younger people, but technology is hijacking the human moment. I had dinner, they were talking about Medicare behind you at dinner. My wife Sally and I were out to dinner, and there was a couple sitting quite close in this bistro. They didn't talk the whole night. They were both on their phones. I don't know what, maybe they were texting each other, I don't know, but the fact is they didn't talk, and I just went, God, what a wasted opportunity. But maybe that made them happy. But the fact is that technology oftentimes is hijacking the chance to be reflective or the chance to push the pause button, step back, look at the big picture. So many young people today are hungering for someone to listen to them. And you talked about isolation being fatal. So many people feeling isolated, like they just want to be heard. They don't want to be taught. There's a new term right now that came from a colleague of mine named Chip Connolly. He said older adults need to be mentorns. Mentor and intern. Wise and curious. Are you wise and curious? Rather than preaching to youngers, it's like, well, listen, ask. They're wanting to be visible and relevant and want you to be visible and relevant as well. Second thing they said if they could live their life over again is they would take more risks the second time around. And the risks were mostly about being authentic. Not climbing mountains, not making big investments, not doing travel risks type of thing. But what they really were saying is that you spend 60% of your life working, and then eventually maybe volunteering or grandparenting, et cetera. And I wish I would have been a better parent, grandparent, spouse, partner, and I never had any guidance in that area. I just did the best I can growing up the way I did. And so they're talking about their regrets in life are mostly around relationships. work relationships, home relationships, etc. They wish they would have been more effective. And the third thing they said, reflection, risk. The third thing they said is, I wish I would have understood this purpose thing mattered. What really, that mattering matters. I've never interviewed anybody that didn't want their life to matter. But how you go about that is what I want to discuss. And that is, as an experiment of one, you don't need me to come and tell you what to do, but I'll share with you some insights about how that goes about. So with the age of aging, the three things I just talked about, people want to live in ways that are really relevant. And they want to stay visible. So many women I've interviewed over the certain age say, I'm invisible. And certain men say, I'm irrelevant. And they want to be visible, men and women, visible and relevant. So the new age of aging, I am not there now, but you know AARP? You might be a member. I co-created AARP's Life Reimagined Institute, which is their study of the future of aging. So I was the co-creator of that, and I had an office part-time in DC for 5 years. I got to interview anybody I wanted because they've got 40 million members and they've got resources to get you out to talk with people and listen to people. And so here's what I learned. First of all, before that, I jumped one slide ahead. Do you know who this is? Anybody from Canada here? This is Terry Fox, his name is. Terry Fox, I came across in 1980. And Terry Fox basically was an 18-year-old kid from Vancouver, Canada, who lost his leg. You can see he's got a prosthesis there on his right leg, to cancer. And when he was in the cancer ward in Canada, looking around at other young people, what he found was that he probably was going to make it, but some of these kids weren't, and they needed some sense of hope. So he decided, while he was in the cancer ward, that when he got out and better, he was going to run all the way across Canada, and raise $1 from every Canadian citizen, $1 million. And he called it the Marathon of Hope. Do you think his parents thought this was a cool idea? Coming out of the cancer ward, etc.? No, they didn't. But he had a friend named Doug, a good colleague friend named Doug, who had an old van, and they put this poster on the side that said Marathon of Hope. And they started on the east coast of Canada. He dipped his prosthetic in the water and started. And when he started going, nobody had a clue who he was. He ran a marathon a day for weeks. And he would get a loonie here, or $1 there, or something, but not much, until all of a sudden the media got onto it. And when he got to Toronto, there were 10,000 people in Nathan Phillips Square waiting to greet him and cheer him on. Why? Because that DNA of wanting to do something, to serve, to do something purposeful. And I saw Terry Fox the day before he ended the run, which is only part way across Canada. Thunder Bay, Ontario. This is outside of a statue outside of Thunder Bay. I was camping with my family around the perimeter of Lake Superior. Thunder Bay is on the northern range up there. And I saw him between two highway patrol cars with this rickety van. And I was running myself at the time. Not then, but I mean, I was a runner. And I wanted to get out, but the police wouldn't let me get out. So when I got into Thunder Bay, it said Marathon of Hope. It turns out that the cancer had spread to his lungs. And that was the last day of the run. He went home and died a year later in 1981. And he's become a national iconic, most recognized hero in all of Canada. He started out to raise $1 million. The Terry Fox Foundation has raised $850 million for the Canadian Cancer Society. There are over 100 institutions named the Terry Fox whatever. And so, I mean, the reason I bring this up is this purpose thing. And to you young folks sitting over here, he's 18. It's not just someday I'll get around to it. purpose is age agnostic. I find as many young people today interested in some kind of purposeful work, some kind of purposeful life, not just for themselves and their own self-absorption. So what do you hope for? What do we hope for? He hoped to help cure cancer. I make the distinction about age agnostic. Also, this purpose is not a goal. He had a goal to raise that money, but what was the purpose? To help those kids, to help other kids like him that needed help. And that's the distinction between a goal and a purpose. It's the why we're doing it, why we're setting this goal, and what's the result. So mattering matters at any age. This is my Uber driver. I told you about going to Denver. And so I go to Denver, and I'm going to give a talk at what they call the Nobel Institute of Aging at Denver University. So I get into my Uber, and the driver says to me, he says, Mr. Leider, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to give this talk about aging. And he said, where are you going to stay? And I said, at the Hotel Moxie. And he said, you're going to be the the oldest person by 30 years. That's a young, hip place. And I said, well, I feel I'm pretty young and hip, you know. I may not be young, but hip. And he said, what are you going to talk about? I said, I'm going to talk about the path of purposeful aging. And he turns to the mirror and he says, you know how old I am? I said, not a clue. And by the way, you don't say that, you know, too young or too old. He said, I'm 81. And I said, 81 and driving an Uber? Why are you doing this? He said, I retired. And like you were talking about, I think, he said, I was sitting on the couch watching 47 hours of TV, which is the average for retirees, a week. And I was not doing so well. And I was really unhealthy. And then my wife died. I retired, but I was kind of taking care of her, and she had some chronic illnesses, and she died. Now I had no reason to get up in the morning at all to even help her. So I decided I would start driving Uber. And I said, because he said, I feel, in my language, I want to belong. I want to feel like connection on a daily basis, and I want to matter. And I can help you. I can help you with, and so we had a wonderful conversation, and I talked to him about it. And he said this phrase came from him, mattering matters. Isolation is fatal. Even the current Surgeon General of the United States, who wrote a book called Togetherness, says that without a reason to get up in the morning, it's worse than 15 cigarettes a day, being isolated. So this purpose thing, you can be a skeptic, but at your own risk. You know, decide now about that. So the power to choose. I love this from Viktor Frankl. I love this from Viktor Frankl. In 1968, I got out of counseling, psychology, graduate school, trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. You think you might figure that out in counseling, but it's usually about other people, not about yourself. And I saw that Viktor Frankl, who I'd actually studied in school, was doing a seminar in San Diego. And it was for professionals, and I wasn't a professional yet, I just graduated, but I weaseled my way in and spent 5 days listening to Viktor Frankl talk about man's search for meaning, which you could also say purpose and meaning, you know, kind of interchangeable. Purpose brings meaning, and things like that. And if you don't know the Viktor Frankl story, Frankl was, as it says here, you know, along with Freud, who he broke from, and Adler, who he broke from, he was kind of the spiritual psychiatrist in Vienna, Austria. But at the very height of his work that he was doing, training other people, he and his family, including his parents, his brother, and his pregnant wife, Tilly, all shipped off in a boxcar to Auschwitz. They all died. He survived after 4 years. And he was liberated, and he weighed 87 pounds. He's kind of a big man. And he went back to Vienna, where he was practicing. He healed, and in 9 days, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning, which is the best-selling all-time book about what I'm talking about here, purpose. And I could hear a pin drop during that week in 1968, listening to him, because he said, you know, he said this, the last of the human freedoms is choice. What kind of choice do you have in a concentration camp? Not much, right? But you do have the choice to get up every day with hope for another day, to give other people hope, to give somebody else a kind word, a crust of bread, a slurp of soup, and to hope that you'll see your wife someday, who he never did. And so this whole business of choice, he would talk about people today who have choice, they don't execute it. Why? And so purpose is really about choosing your direction, choosing your aim, choosing your daily why to get up in the morning. Viktor Frankl is one of the great. So indicator number 1 is a purpose presence. Indicator number 2 is, what is your path? What is your aim? What is your direction? So back to AARP, the Life Reimagined Institute. This is what I grew up with. This is in your handouts, by the way. You have a handout here. On one side, it will show you 2 stories about aging. This is the story I grew up with. And the question is, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? Don't ask that. How are they going to know these days with so many transitions and choices, including ourselves? But you see the arc? That's because we didn't live as long when this arc was first made. My dad died my dad retired. He worked for the same place for 40 years, retired at 65, right on schedule, and died two years later. And I thought he had enough medicine and money, but I don't think he had enough meaning. And I'll never know, because he dropped dead of a heart attack on a skyway in town, and I never got the chance to really dig into it with him. But on the bottom, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, retirement, old age. That's what I grew up with. And have you ever heard of or played the Game of Life? The board game, the Game of Life? Do you know when that first came out? 1875. I'm not kidding. Same old model. Some people believe this model today. Learn, earn, retire. In 1900, the average life expectancy in the US was age 47. Now, the fastest growing cohort in the country is 85 and over. More women entrepreneurs in their 60s than young entrepreneurs. I mean, there's just staggering statistics of all sort about how things are changing. But I grew up with this particular model, and so my last book is called not what do you want to do when you grow up? Let me go back here a minute. But who do you want to be when you grow old? What is your mindset? So many people, when they look at their lives, are looking in the rearview mirror, looking backwards. Have you been to a reunion? High school, college, whatever? And who do you seek out at that reunion? Sometimes it's the rearview mirror. You go back to those people. But other times it's like, well, what are you up to Clarence, what are you up to these days? Kathleen, what are you up to these days? What do you care about? What are your passions or interests? And if I get a dull look, I move on very, very quickly. Because for me, nothing's worse than being seated next to a former anything. We're all former somethings, but if we're stuck in that, and it's good to do a life review, it's good to appreciate the past and things like that, but not be stuck there, to also have. So one of the things that I advocate you do is that you take out when you get a chance, 2 index cards as a little test of yourself. And on one index card, you say, what's my reason to rise? Why do I get up in the morning? And just jot down whatever comes to mind that day or for a few days, etc. Just coach yourself. Be accountable. What do I do to rise? And the second index card is what keeps me up at night? And what I'm looking at here is not your worries. I'm looking at your passions. What are you curious about? What are you reading? What are you studying? What are you thinking about? Who are you talking to? What are you? And so I look for not only why do you get up, but why do you stay up in certain ways. Not saying you should stay up, but this is just an example of how to hold yourself somewhat accountable. And so when we're always looking in the rearview mirror, then there's a reason the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror, because it's about hope, it's about possibility. So here's the new model that I've been a student of now for quite a long time. Same basic childhood, adolescence, adulthood. But you see that new life stage there? You can look at it on your handout if you wish. But the new life stage, there's a dip. You see that dip in the middle? The most unhappy, the science today, the most unhappy time of life is in midlife, when we've got a lot of pressures on ourselves. And it used to be that it was a deficit model of aging, that grow up and decline. Well, now if we make certain choices, not just financial choices, that's critical, and health choices, but also meaning choices about why we get up in the morning, that curve goes up. And we now see that it's the growth stage, our growth mindset, that helps us make that curve go up. So the two happiest times are back here in post-adolescence. We grow up twice. The first time we grow up is from adolescence to adulthood, and there are all kinds of rituals like graduations and weddings and on and on. But what kind of rituals are there other than the gold watch, the retirement, for this whole next phase of life, which could be 20, 30, 40 years? We don't know. The future's not promised to any of us. And so I've been studying this whole new life stage and finding many people choosing not to retire, can't retire, don't want to retire, want to be active aging. There's all kinds of new models for when we look at this. And oh, by the way, they call that, if you want to Google it sometime, not now, that dip there, they call it the U-curve of happiness. It's worldwide studies about the U-curve of happiness. There is a book out by that title. I'm in that book. I didn't write that book, but it's because of this model, and that we've been studying this dip and then how to come out of this dip as we get to the second growth stage, which is from adulthood to elderhood, and what our mindset is about that. So the windshield, as I said, bigger than the rearview mirror. We talked about the good life. We talk about repacking. We talk about got stuff, get help. I wrote a book called Repacking Your Bags, Lighten Your Load for the Good Life. So I'm smiling as can be when I'm talking about got stuff, because that's exactly what my wife and I, she's 77, I'm 80, and we're in a repacking phase. So the repacking book has sold tens of thousands of copies in 20 languages about lightening your load, not just now, but lightening your load for the good life. And so here's what we found. My co-author is a philosophy professor in Seattle. David Shapiro is his name. So we went back to the ancient philosophers to look at what is the good life over time and what is the good life now. And everyone here has got their own vision, their own windshield of what that good life is. But here's what we found were the 4 characteristics of the good life: place, people, right work, and purpose. Are you living in the place you love? Well, we just talked about downsizing or not, but place is critical. But you see, many times people retire to a place and then they move back because place is more than just stuff. But stuff is critical, and I'm in the middle of that conversation right now, taking the book home with me to my wife about got stuff. Secondly is people, tribe. It's fundamental to be to have the place piece put together, which includes finances, etc., but also people. Who is your tribe these days? And one of the things that I advocate and write about is having what I call a sounding board. A sounding board. Who's in your kitchen cabinet? Who can you talk to when you've got ups and downs in life? And so a sounding board has 4 characteristics, or 4 kinds of people, the way I write about it. Number 1, who is your committed listener? You can hire a committed listener, but once a year is not enough. It's plenty to do it. I mean, you need to do that. But who is your committed listener? Many times men will choose their spouse or partner. Women rarely choose their husband. Just for the record, we've done some research on this. So a committed listener is somebody who practices care versus cure. Many men are designed to cure, to fix things. Well, why don't you do this? Well, why don't you just listen to me to find out what I want? And so it's hard. It's hard in this time to slow down, push the pause button, and do that kind of listening. So who is your committed listener? Secondly, who is your wise elder? Who is somebody that's about 10 years older than you, whether you know them or not? Could be someone in your church, could be a spiritual person, could be deceased. But you say, well, what would they ask? What would they say? What would they have to say about this concern? Third, who is your wise younger? Who is that person who is younger than you that would ask a different kind of questions, and maybe you could be a mentor and an intern to have that kind of conversation. And then fourth, who is your pet? You're looking at me like, what is he talking about? My wife's, our cat, knows no more about life than I do. My wife loves this cat, 18 years old, named Sophia. And people and their pets, or people who have, we know that even people with dementia, serious Alzheimer's, who are in places that have a reason to get up in the morning, like to water a plant, feed a pet, read to a kid, etc., do better because they have a reason. So I bring the pet up just as an example because pets, as well as the others, matter in certain ways. So living in the place you love, with the people you love, doing work you love, whatever that work is. It could be creative work, it could be paid work, it could be volunteer work, it could be grandparenting work, but looking at the formula for that, which is what I want to do with you, is important, with purpose, with a reason to matter, with a point of view, a direction to life. So what time is it in your life? We all have situations. People say, well, that's great if you have health and if you have money and if you have this, but I myself was traveling in Switzerland. My wife and I every year do a trek in the Swiss Alps. We were traveling in Switzerland and I had a medical challenge and I was in the hospital for 2 nights and Medicare didn't cover it, but my Advantage program did. It took me 6 months to get the money back, but I did get it back. That, if you want to have a medical episode, do it in Switzerland. But I don't mean you should have one, believe me. But the fact is that I was covered totally because I had done, thankfully, my homework on it being that way. I just had surgery 2 months ago. I'm here standing before you having recovered surgically just fine. I'm doing great, but things happen. And so when you look at time, it's clicking. No matter how old you are or how old you think you'll end up to be, when you ask people, do they want to live to be 100? How many here want to live to be 100? Yeah, that's the point. So what would it mean? And it has to do with money and meaning, or money, medicine, and meaning. If I could live and have a sense of purpose all the way, but you don't know. So you have to make decisions daily on, that's why I say, my purpose is to help others unlock the power of purpose. I think that's why God put me here on earth. And so I talk about purpose with a big P. That's my big P purpose. My little p purpose, big P, little p, my little p purpose is to make a difference in one person's life every day. Unsolicited, not here, not because maybe that'll be the case, but I wake up with the intention to be called to do that in certain ways. So, I didn't know you were going to talk about a puzzle. Medicare is a puzzle, purpose is a puzzle. And so, indicator number 3 of purpose is, what does that puzzle look like? What does that recipe really look like? And so, first of all, I've already advocated that you do a purpose pause, reflection. And I got a chance to interview some astronauts, and they talk about what's called the purpose effect. And the purpose effect is called, they actually name it at NASA, it's called the overview effect. when you're out like this, can you imagine looking back at Earth and not being changed in some way about what it looks like there? No boundaries, how it all fits together, the pieces all fit together. And most of the astronauts who eventually retire end up serving something, doing something for the planet. And not just climate change, and not just, but whatever it is for them individually. But we're not going to be sitting there looking there, but we need to pause. And I've already talked about that. So here's the recipe. And the recipe for purpose after years of study is, I call it the napkin test. Because a lot of good ideas are what? They're on the back of a napkin. You just write it down and say, well, think about it this way, or something to that effect. And so I used to be, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, the number 3 person in what is now called U.S. Bank. I was in HR. Some of you remember what it used to be called personnel? So then it had to be HR or other talent or whatever. But I was number 3 in HR at what is now U.S. Bank. But I had what now is called a side hustle. I did something on the side. In addition to my HR work, they called it Lunch Hour Limited. You buy me lunch, I coach you. Because I'm trained as a certified coach, counselor. And so I had a waiting list for Lunch Hour Limited. And I hardly ever ate lunch. Because I was so excited about what I was doing, and we only had an hour, but I would take out a napkin and I would say, "Now write this down." The napkin test. Gifts plus passions plus values equals calling. And Suzanne had her calling up here in writing. Fantastic. I love that. And she lives it, and she's sharing that with you, and that's why we're here. So my calling was to help people unlock the power of purpose, as I said, and this is the napkin test. So gifts are like talents. So I want you to think right now about gifts as God-given gifts that you were born with. And one of my mentors who died a few years ago wrote a book called What Color is Your Parachute? Sold 10 million copies across the country. He's an Episcopal priest. And he wrote the foreword for one of my books. And I used to teach with him and do things with him, and he died about 5 years ago now. But he's an Episcopal priest, and he said this. He said, I had a conversation with God that I wanted to be born and go to earth. And God said, fine, I'm going to grant you that wish, but you're going to have to do something, and I'm going to give you these gifts to bring to earth to share, to give. And so, make a long story end here. He woke up with permission to come to earth and be born, but he had amnesia. He couldn't remember the gifts. He said, that's true for all of us. Most of us don't get a guide, don't get the manual. We have to sort of earn it or experience it. Hopefully we get some guidance from elders, etc. But what are your gifts? There are 4 characteristics of a gift. Many more. There's a tool I developed that you can get on Amazon called calling cards, which helps you to do this formula. It's about $15, but it's a box of 52 cards that helps you to discern your gifts. So in a nutshell here, gifts are, number 1, something you love to do. Your hand turns to it naturally, whether you're paid for it or whether it's your job description, or think of that. You love to do it. Secondly, others observing you doing it effortlessly and superbly, or doing it with joy. Good joy. And third, you can't remember learning it. I don't know, I've always been doing this. Since I was a youth, my hand always turned to this. And if you have kids, or you look at your own life, or grandkids, you know they're not all the same. One's out fixing the lawnmower, one's playing music, one's an artist, they all have things that they tend toward. We all do. And fourth, so we love to do it, others observe it, we love to do, we can't remember learning it, we may not have a degree in it, may not have a certificate in it, it's just something that's in our members as human beings. And the fourth thing is we like learning more about it. We like a tribe, we like hanging around with other people who get it, or get you in certain ways. So can you think of one of your gifts? And if you were to use that gift towards something that kept you up at night that you were cared about in an environment that fit you in many ways. An environment that is not toxic, but is healthy, and feel like there's other people in that community or that organization or that church or synagogue or temple, whatever. That is the recipe for the power of purpose. So, big P, little p. That's what I've talked about. What is your big P? You don't need a rocket science here to determine your little p. And one of the people who I've written about and who I have permission to tell his story is a man named Ed Rapp, R-A-P-P. Ed was the number 3 person in Caterpillar. You know the company Caterpillar? He was about to be named CEO of Caterpillar. And he was a client of mine, and I used to teach in the Caterpillar leadership program, et cetera. And he had been chief financial officer. He was the president of one of their 3 divisions. He was raised in Pilot Grove, Missouri, in a small farming community. First person in his family to go to the university. Went to work at Caterpillar, worked there his whole life. He was 57 years old, and he was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which he has now, which is a 5 to 7 year, and he's in 7 point something year. And he's at arm crutches, and he's got a recumbent bike, and his big P, he said, when we talk about the good life, he said, I'm living the good life. I don't know how long I'll live, but some days I'm happier than I've ever been, in spite of it all. His big P purpose, he created a foundation called Stay Strong, not Live Strong, Stay Strong versus ALS. To date, that foundation that he created has raised $17 million for ALS research. And he goes out and speaks. He gave the commencement address at the University of Missouri with ALS going on stage and all of that to raise money. But his little p, every single day, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time, he gets up and goes on Zoom or phone and coaches somebody who was just diagnosed with ALS, who is terrified. Could be a young person, midlife person, older person. He said, I love doing this, sharing my protocols, my point of view, listening. And he says, this gets me up every day. And so that's his big P, little p purpose. So my challenge to you is to grow and to give for life. That's the basic bottom line. And my challenge is that when you go home, you take out a Post-it and write grow and give on the Post-it. And put that Post-it on your mirror where you get up in the morning, maybe to brush your teeth or to whatever. And ask yourself, how am I going to grow and give today? And if you're not growing, you don't have a lot to give. You're not as conscious, you're not as aware, you're not as vital in giving. And at the end of the day, before you go to bed at night, you're brushing your teeth, you're ready to go to bed, ask yourself, how did I grow and give today? If you do that for a week, you will understand exactly the felt sense of purpose. This isn't just a nice concept. This is a felt sense in the body. That's why we heal and grow longer, because we're growing and giving and remaining vital to life in spite of it all, like Frankl and others have taught us. And also on the back of your handout that you have, there's something called the repacking checklist. Kind of like got stuff, get help. This is what's in your backpack. You put it down and look inside. And I know in one of my trips in Africa, I was with a Maasai elder, and we were walking along the Serengeti, between the Great Rift Valley and the Serengeti. And this Maasai elder, his name is Koye, said to me, what are you guys carrying? And I had a dozen people, and he was guiding us, and we were camping along. And I said, well, I'll show you what's in my pack. So I put my pack down on the ground, and I started to take everything out. And I'm the leader of the trip, so what's in the pack is what's in your pack as well, because you got the list from me. And so I start taking out the first aid kit, and out comes the root finders and my Gore-Tex rain gear. I can't even explain Gore-Tex in English, nevertheless Swahili. And so I get all this piled up in front of him. The little kids in the village are all looking at it and laughing and never seen stuff like this before. And Koye comes over to me, as only a wise elder. He says, Richard, tell me, does all this make you happy? I said, well, I need this for this. And I realized I was carrying twice as much as I needed to really be either safe or happy. So I decided to leave half of my stuff at the village to be given away. And if you were sitting around the fire with me that night and you said, you're leaving half of your stuff here, what are you leaving? What really matters? Just like with your stuff, what do you want to keep? What do you want to donate? That kind of thing. And so what does it make, what makes us happy? I contend that it makes us happy when we have a reason to get up in the morning beyond just ourselves. And so I want to end with one quick story, and then I actually, rarely ever happens, but the flight I need to get home tonight, it gets me home in a decent hour. I have to pick up an Uber right now. I hope it's an older person. But I have to pick up an Uber here at 2:30. But let me just end with this. That's my website. That's not what I'm ending with, but everything on my website's free. I'm not selling you anything, but there's free videos, PBS specials, if you want to follow up, if you have any interest in this. Final thing I'll say is this, that mattering matters. I was giving a talk to an audience like this in northern Minnesota about 15 years ago, and I got, it was kind of pre-cell phone, and someone walked up to the front of the room and handed me a slip of paper and said, call home right now. I went, okay, and I did. And I turned it over to one of my colleagues who was there co-teaching with me. And my wife said, Richard, your mother is in intensive care at St. Joseph's Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota. She's had a stroke. She's not going to live through the night. You better come home now. This is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I left. And my mom, 10 years before that, had had breast cancer surgery, was doing great, working, taking good care of herself, et cetera. But now she'd had this, at age 78, had this stroke. So I got into intensive care at night, about 11 o'clock by the time I finally got there. And you can imagine, as I'm driving about 4 hours from northern Minnesota back to St. Paul, Minnesota, the music sounds differently, sunset looks different. I'm getting all these backstory stories about our life and thoughts about our life and what I'm going to be facing here. I get there, and the intensive care nurse ushers me in. My family's not, the rest of the family's not there, just me at the time. And I said, could you just leave me alone for a minute here? And I just lost it. I'd never been in a situation, I didn't know what to make of it. And so she closed the door, and I did what was probably illegal, but I got up on the bed. And I picked up my mom. Her eyes were closed and she was gasping for breath. And I just held her and I said, only 2 things. I said, Mom, I think it's time to go. Thank you. And when I said thank you, she opened her eyes and took 2 more breaths and died in my arms right there. And I tell you that because we're an audience that can hear that. And the fact is, we all want our lives to matter. Day to day to day is what matters. She was a stay-at-home mom, immigrant mom, volunteered school and church and things like that, but had 2 kids. And somehow at the end of our life, we want to know that our life mattered, that we had a good run of it here. So I hope you got 1 or 2 insights about the third M, the meaning M. And I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm going to exit real quickly here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
That was so good. Thank you.
So, am I on? Testing. Maybe not.
Yeah.
About now.
Thanks.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, Richard, your car's waiting out there for you. So, thank you so much.
I'm sorry to leave.
And we, when I first met Richard over
Thank you.
Zoom,
Learned a lot.
and I went out and bought everything he had for sale, all of his books and everything. And I read his, I listened to his Audible
I hope he
stuff, and
doesn't charge us
it's
for
really
reading.
good. And I knew that we had to bring him to town, to Columbus, and
Oh, jeez.
have him speak to you. So I really appreciate him and his message. One thing I wanted to point out real quick is we're going to have the drawings here in a minute. So the paper that's in your folder for Kathy's, if you haven't filled that out and gave it up at her table, please do that now so we can get you in the drawing for that here in a minute. Suzanne? Okay, so some of you have already heard about this, and I'm just going to let Suzanne take it away.
Okay, wasn't that great? That was great. That was great. Okay, so I have to tell you guys this story. So maybe about a year ago, it may have been 2 years ago by now, because it seems like time flies as you get older. My parents said to me, "Hey, Suzanne, would you be the executor of our estate?" I said, "No." And so after I thought about it for a little while, I'm like, yes, I will. I'll be the executor of estate, but I want your wills updated. I want your everything updated, because when you pass, I'm going to be so sad. I don't want to be going through and trying to figure out where your life insurance policies are and what you want your obituary to say and who preceded you in death and all this stuff. So my mom and dad was getting all that together for me. At the same time, well, not the same time, but maybe a year or so before that, my sister's house had burned to the ground while she was at church. And she had 5 kids, so she lost all their birth certificates, all their Social Security cards, her marriage license, her wedding pictures, etc. It was traumatic. So I remember going through all that with her. So we're going to fast forward. So in my mind, I kept thinking, what do you do to fix these problems? So about a month ago, somebody called in our office. And I'm going to change the story a little bit just to protect her privacy. And she said, I need help. My husband just passed away, kind of unexpectedly. I don't have the password to his computer. And he took care of all of the bills. He took care of every finance, everything that we have. We got on the phone with Apple. Apple won't help me reset the password because it goes to his email that's in the computer. That was very sad, because here she is dealing with emotional, she's dealing with finances, she's dealing with all this. And it was like, actually Alice here in the office, she's the one that took the call. And she come in and was telling me about it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what can we do? This is terrible. So we all put our heads together, and we created what we call the Legacy of Love Kit. And every household here will get a copy of this today, okay? Now, what this Legacy of Love Kit is, well, first of all, I tell the story of why, because it's so important. But your first 10 pages, and this is a little overwhelming. Don't get overwhelmed by it, okay? So I want you to take, over the next 10 days, I want you to take and just do the first 10 pages, okay? So the first 10 pages is really about what are your passwords? Where do you have your passwords stored? What's your passwords to your bank account? What's your passwords to your computer? What's the passwords to your cell phone? What's the passwords to your garage door opener? Because here's the deal. We had flown out to Washington, when we went to Washington in February to, weigh in on Medicare legislation. We're on the plane, well, right before we get on the plane, and I'm like, man, if something happens to us, there's some things our kids don't know, just being honest. Well, then, if the 4 of us go together, no one knows my garage door opener. How are they going to get in my house, right? So what we did is we took this and we created a section for each one, okay? Now, these are per household because you put husband and wife information or spouse information in, okay? Now, I did Joe and I's the other day. Took me about 3 hours. Now, we do have in a PDF form as well. So some people like handwriting it out. Some people like to do it in a PDF. We can give you the PDF so you can edit it. Anyways, so what we found is I don't want it to be overwhelming. I really don't, because I want you to do at least the first 10 pages. because if something happens, whoever is your heir is going to get this. Now, one section of this, my niece was over the other day talking to me, and I was like, hey, I have to share with you this book. And I was explaining this whole book. Well, I asked, she started telling me a story, and I said, can I share your story? And her parents had been divorced, and she had been estranged from her father for probably, I would say probably close to 30 years. And her father passed away, and she was the closest of kin. So she called, they call her. She goes over to the funeral home. She said she sat down in the funeral home, and of course they started trying to figure out the obituary. Was he married? What's this? And they started asking all these questions that she had no idea what the answers were. So I told her, I said, in my book here, because I was super pumped about this book, I said, in my book here, I even have a section on planning, like pre-planning. Like, what do you want your obituary to say? Who do you want your pallbearers to be? You don't want your kids to have to try to figure out who the pallbearer is going to be. So there's a section for that. I had a little bit of fun. There's a section for pets. I have a dog. So if something happens to, let's say all of us, something happens to all of us, my dog, who's the, what's his vaccines? You know, is he up to date with his vaccine? Is the dog chipped? What's his favorite food? Hey, there's a whole section in there. And pets. So everybody here will get a copy of it. Well, I mean, every household, because you only need one per household, okay? You'll be able to pick that out walking out the door. We'll give it to you. Now, here's the other thing. I found a nice fireproof kit, okay? This fits right in there. Now, when I did ours the other day, like I said, it took me a while, but it has a section here. Like I had my passports in there, our marriage license, social security cards. Like if you have like debit or credit cards, you could put there. This section right here was, I would say, probably my favorite because I can show you that. It has a little area, so I could put our life insurance policies, any wills, trust, titles to cars, you name it, it's here. So we're going to give away 10 of these today, okay? As well as everybody will get this, every family.
Okay, that's good stuff, Suzanne. And before we do that, I want to do Kathy's drawing real quick. Does everybody that wants to be in her drawing, have you filled out the paper and given it to her? If not, okay, great. Here, Kathy, you have anything you want to say?
Well, what is this called? Legacy of Love? My husband and I have a yellow envelope, and it's called the Hit by the Bus envelope. We always That's a much nicer name. We always say, okay, honey, if I'm ever hit by a bus, it's in that envelope. So,
Man, we should have got that domain name right there.
Hit by a bus.
Hitbythebus.com.
We recently went to Europe for 2 weeks, and I took the envelope, and it actually says on it, hit by the bus. And I took a picture of it and sent it to my responsible child, and I said, look, if we're hit by a bus in Europe, everything you need's in this envelope. And my son sent a funny emoji back and said, I'm hoping I don't have to open that envelope. So anyway, we're going to do a drawing for the gorgeous basket there on our table. So do that. And first of all, I thank you for these. I wanted to let you know how we use these. My wonderful boy wonder, Brandon, will be making a call to you. Now again, we're not going to spam you, we don't bug you, but what we want to do is how can we serve you? Some of you have written on here what you need. If you need a walkthrough of your home, if you need contractors, if you need to know stuff. So his name's Brandon. When you get a call, it's not spam. He just wants to thank you and say how can we help you with any of your real estate or house resources. And of course, we would love to meet you if we have an opportunity at no obligation just to walk through your home and give you an idea of value and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna let Suzanne draw from here, and then I've mixed them all up, so you just handed it to me, it's not on top.
Okay. Do, do, do,
Yeah.
do. Okay. Jay, I and I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but it's Muether.
Jay?
Yeah. Congratulations.
And I'm going to apologize after telling you to get rid of all your stuff. I'm sending Jay home with a big basket of stuff to take.
Awesome.
Thank you all. You guys have been terrific, and we'll be here at our table if you have any questions.
Thanks so much, Kathy. You've been great.
Okay, now this is for, like I said, we have 10 of these. So I'm get your little ticket numbers out, the blue numbers.
And we're going to try to do this as quick as possible. So please, we'll have our sons, Nolan and Mitchell, bring these out to you.
So these are our two kids. Because we've had a
Yes.
couple of people have been with me for so long, they remember them being this big, then this big, and now
Right.
they're bigger than me.
When they keep talking about your responsible kid, I'm just so conflicted over here. Should we have had a third, like a girl?
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is 636-252. 636, yes, right there, great. Next one is 636-269. 636-269. Oh, they left early. Nah. 636-269. Okay, maybe not. Yeah, so like if people didn't show up, then these tickets were already assigned to people, so no biggie. 636-296. Yes. There we go. Great. Okay, 636-226. Okay, great. Done 3.
That's 3.
Okay. 636-203. Okay, great. Hey, Mitchell, you just stand there, okay? Okay, 636-228. Okay, great. There you go. 636-171. Did we get 171? No. Okay. 636-239. 239, great. Okay, 636-197.
Nope.
No one? No 197? Okay, 636-248. 248, yeah. So we got 7 down, 3 to go. Okay, 636-189. 189, great. 2 more. Okay. 636-234. Yes. Okay, last one for this drawing. We are drawing for something else, so don't throw your ticket away just yet. 636-146. Great. Okay, great. And for anybody that wants, so like we are for like other people, not you guys. We are selling this for $99. This together with the Legacy of Love kit binder and the case, $99. So if anybody wants to buy that didn't win just the case today, you're already getting the binder for free, so no worries on that. But if you also want to buy a case today, it's $50. Just see the registration table on your way out. We've got, I think, 50 here with us, so we got plenty, so if you want to buy one. And then, so like, do you want to talk about the Legacy box?
Yeah, so let me explain to you what the Legacy box is. Okay, so my oldest son graduated from high school back in 2020, and I remember my grandpa coming to my graduation party, or graduation way back when I graduated, with that big camera thing up on his shoulder. You know what I'm talking about, right? The video camera, the big video camera. And he videoed, I can't even tell you how many videos he had before he passed away. And when Nolan got ready to graduate, I remember thinking, man, I want to show Nolan my graduation. Not that he cares, but I thought he would. So needless to say, I called and I can't get a copy of it. I don't even have a VHS player. What am I going to do with it? But really, I wanted to get it. So we found this company, it's called Legacy, it's a Legacy Box. So what we did, now Joe and I just went through a bunch of our stuff, and basically you send your stuff to them, and they put it all in a digital format and send it back to you. So it's pretty neat. I'm very excited because I think that so many people have a lot of home videos that your kids really do want to see them, but they don't want the big fat tape. They don't have nothing to play it on. So we're going to give away a certificate for $300 to the Legacy Box, to do your Legacy Box, because you really do want it. So you have the certificate, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's the thing. We like we've talked about, we don't want to recommend anybody to you that we don't already trust. So we sent ours to legacybox.com. We got on there, we ordered it, and it's a nationwide company, and it's pretty trustworthy. But I'm a little bit unimpressed because I paid for the expedited service because I wanted to get it back before this event and be like, hey, look how great it is, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't get it back in time. So not impressed with their expedited service. So I wouldn't pay extra for that. Although I did like throw a bunch of stuff in there that I'm not so sure it was like on their approved. It was like some floppy disk drives. Like I was like, they should be able to do something with this, but there wasn't anything in their information that said they would do that. So maybe that hasn't hung up. So I don't want to completely throw them under the bus there. But if you find a local company, we would love to hear about it that does this. If you try it out and want to give us a recommendation. So basically, we created a certificate. So it's for $300. So if you use legacybox.com and you spend whatever you spend, up to $300, we're going to reimburse you. If you find a local company and spend $300, we'll reimburse you. Just let us know once you do it, and we'll.
We just want you to do it.
Yes,
Do it.
absolutely. And if we end up like legacybox.com is like a disaster for us, we'll send out an email and let everybody know not to use them. Okay, here is the winner, 636-307. 307. Nobody? Oh.
Bummer.
Okay, another chance. 636-168. Oh, great. Congratulations. Can I get, basically you need to sign that and put his name on it. Okay, Suzanne, so what
You
is...
just want to fill this out. You just sign it.
So while she's doing that, one thing I did want to mention, and last year we started like a quarterly newsletter, and we tried to get all of our clients on our mailing list, and we send it out quarterly. If you're not getting this and you want to get it, please let one of our team know your address, and so we can get you on the mailing list. But it's a really nice touch. It's actually a physical newsletter we mail out, which is kind of a lost art these days, but a lot of people appreciate it. So we're excited to be doing that now. So
Just don't remind me we have the book.
the book. Yes. So we got plenty of copies of Suzanne's book. So this is a great tool to give to your friends, anybody retiring, turning 65. We work by referral. So, we don't do we don't do much advertising, if any. It's all about you passing the word out to other people. And this is a great tool to hand it to a friend, or they can always call our office and we'll mail out a copy. But we have plenty here today. So if you're like, hey, I got 5 friends retiring in the next year or so, please grab those and hand them out to them. We really appreciate that. We appreciate every referral so much. So it's what keeps NUMA going. So anything else you wanted to cover on that? So another thing that, and we want to save some time to do some Q&A. Like if you have any questions, we want to cover those while you're here. You took the time to be here this afternoon, and there's probably things that you heard today that, hey, I'd like some more clarification on that. We'd love to do that before we wrap up. But one of the things that, like we just said, we work off of referrals, and like I love it when we get an email from somebody that says, "Oh, you guys were so great," blah blah blah. You know, like somebody on the team will get it and they'll send it to the rest of the team, and it just lights everybody up when we hear those like words of appreciation. Well, we just recently set up our Google account, so it's like we can accept Google reviews now. And in your folder there is a survey. We'd love for you to fill out that survey today and hand it to us before you leave. But also on there is if you scan it with your phone, and if you don't know how to do this, it's fine. Somebody can help you from our team. I only learned how to do it since COVID when menus were on a QR code. But so we would love to have you, if you're a current client, great. If you'd love to just put a few words on Google and give us a 5-star review. Now, funny story. So my dad and mom, like Suzanne talked about earlier, they're 83 and 85. And I try to go over to their house at least once a week for lunch. And they start out with this new chiropractor for my mom, and my dad loves to talk. He's a great extrovert. He loves to talk to people. So he's like, week after week, he's like, tell me how great this chiropractor is and everything. And so then I go over one day for lunch, and he's like, he's like, yeah, the chiropractor wanted us to leave him a Google review. And I'm like, okay, well, did you do it? He's like, yeah, he helped me get on my phone and do it. And he said, well, out of 5 stars, how many stars would you give our chiropractor service? 5 being the best. And my dad said, how about a 4? And my dad's like, the guy just seemed a little like upset. I think my dad used the word crestfallen, a little upset. And he's like, why do you think? I'm like, well, the guy does a great job for you, right? I mean, what would he need to do for you to deserve 5 stars? He's like, well, I don't know. Does anybody really deserve 5 stars? So we'd love to get 5-star review from you if you could do that for us. It's great for the team. It's great, we would love to hear those words of appreciation. If you could do that before you leave today, that would be great. But if you would rate us less than 4 stars, just please come tell us why, so we can make it right with you. We deal with a lot of people, so I'm sure there's people out there that would say, hey, I'm not sure if I'd give you 4 or 5, but anyway, so yeah, just let us know if there is anything that would cause you to rate us less than 4 stars. So, but yeah.
Introduce our team real quick.
Okay, yeah, and before we go into some Q&A, I want to get our team down here because we've not introduced them yet, and we had it on our agenda at a couple different places, but we just kept running up against the clock, and I feel bad. But we have Tisha here. A lot of you've already heard from her today. She's our main Medicare advisor. When she came to us, she did have somewhat of a background, but Suzanne trained her step by step. So we're really proud of how far she's came and how great she is. And we trust her 100% when it comes to our new clients. And then we have Alice Harlow, and a lot of you probably have talked to her. She's great on the phones, and she takes care of a lot of our back office support, a lot of our extra care support. We got Ty Bogle down here, and he's great on the phones and does a great job for us. And the newest member of our team, Brittany, just came on board a few weeks ago, and we can tell she's going to be a superstar for NUMA too. So we look at our team like, hey, we have a bunch of A players, and we really appreciate them. And Suzanne and I really pour into them because if we do a great job for them and keep them happy, we know they're going to do a great job for you and keep you happy. So, Suzanne, you want to say anything?
So if anybody has needs any help doing the review, just stick your hand up, or these guys can come help you. They're way more techie than me, as you could tell with my clicker. Is there any questions? Because I know that some people had a few questions. I'd be more than happy to answer.
We can bring a microphone out to you.
Yeah.
Just raise a hand. Wow, we did that good of a job that nobody has a question.
Oh,
Okay,
right there.
here, who wants to run a microphone?
is it GoodRx is another prescription option? You know, what do you know about that?
So the question was, can you use GoodRx, or what do we know about GoodRx? Let me give you a perfect example. So your drug plan that you have right now, if you go to whatever pharmacy and you pick up a prescription, they might say, hey, it's going to cost you $12, for example. So if you ever get onto like goodrx.com, it doesn't cost anything. Well, they have two versions. One's a paid, one's a non. But you could go into whatever pharmacy and say, well, is this cheaper on GoodRx? Or you can actually get on goodrx.com and see if there's a cheaper pharmacy somewhere for that drug. Just kind of shop around. So like I had an example, so like we had a medication personally, it was gonna be $347 at Giant Eagle, and I jumped on goodrx.com and it was $147 at Walmart. Literally, with that GoodRx coupon. You cannot use them combined with the Medicare prescription drug card. They don't combine, but you can go in and say, well, which one is the cheapest or the best deal for me? That's a good question. Give me 1 second. Go ahead.
So you talked about the law that got signed that's going to impact our prescription plans. Now you mentioned it'll impact every one of us. I'm assuming it'll be spread to every prescription plan, even somebody who's working out in the marketplace, so it'll trickle down to every prescription.
Well, it's a prescription drug plan with like a Medicare plan.
Okay.
I don't know about employer plans because that
Okay.
really, this is strictly Medicare related that I know about.
Okay.
And I will tell you this, I do know one insurance company, which I can't release the name yet. They've already come out and said that December 31st, they're canceling all plans that they have. It's one particular insurance company. So it's there, it's coming. You know what I'm saying? That's a good question though, but I don't know about employer.
I had that same situation with, I don't know if it was GoodRx or not, but I have Humana and I have to use Walmart. I actually somehow, God only knows how, lost a full bottle of prescription. Now I found it later, but not before I needed it. So I went to the pharmacy and they said most likely they will let us do this. Well, it came back Humana, no matter what you do, lose it, your dog ate it, you threw it into the ocean, they will not give you another prescription, period, without you paying full price. So the pharmacy went on to either GoodRx or one of the others, and it was going to cost me like $400 or something, full price, and I got it for like $32.
One other question somebody asked, oh, sorry, 1 second. Somebody asked me on a break is, if you're a client that's been grandfathered into like what we do like now with Extra Care, is there any benefit to join Extra Care? The answer is no. Like what we do, we made the promise to clients back then that we're going to take care of them at a certain level of service, and that's going to stand forever. It's just the new clients now, we have the Extra Care program for them.
So my question is, if we know someone, or clients come in and they say they're going to retire on whatever date, and they're going to need Medicare, how far before that date, or what's the best time to come talk to you?
I like 90 days. 90 days. If we go too much earlier than that, we're going to pretty much tell you got to wait till 90 days. So 90 days is good.
But here's the thing, if you, like, I would be like very anxious, like I'm getting all this stuff in the mail, it's like I need to make sure that I'm taken care of up to this. So if it's 6 months out, a year out, have them call our office, we're gonna put them in our system, and then we're going to, they're gonna be added to our email list and our everything, so they get put in our system and we start, they'll get our newsletter from that point on. So it's a really good follow-up system, and we'll put when we need to follow up with them before they need to.
All right, I'm concerned about what was said about you can go GoodRx, because the problem potentially could be, let's say through the Medicare plan, it's $100 or something. And so if you did RX and it was $50, that's great, except that it's not then put forward as part of your...
It doesn't get applied to your deductible.
Right.
That is
and
correct.
And then, wherever those 4 things are,
Yeah.
the levels.
Yeah, it does not get applied to your deductible because it's not going through your insurance. But what I've seen is there's such a savings going there sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it makes more sense that way. Is there any other questions?
Okay, sorry, right here, Tisha.
I've heard that people's Medicare card numbers were compromised, and they actually had to get a new number. Have you heard anything like that in the last 6 months?
I have not heard that.
Okay, because I know they actually called Medicare and they said, yes, that is true, so it wasn't a fraud thing.
Yeah, I have not heard that. No, I haven't heard that.
So before too many people start heading out, I want to say, like, your name tag, you can just drop that off at the registration table on the way out if you want to. No big deal. And the review, that survey that the review stuff is on, if you could fill that survey out and drop it off on the way out too. But any other questions?
There's one more question.
What was that grandfather date? I mean, what year?
Was it 20?
The date?
2020. Was it?
You'll know. I mean, it.
I want to say it was 2020.
Yeah, I think it was the end of 2020, or no, beginning of 20.
You know what? Email me. I'll tell you. I'll tell you, because I'll be able to tell, because it's in my computer system, so I'll be able to see it.
We have everybody. We have it marked in our system, like the cutoff date, and we let people know. So, like, when did you come on board with us? Yeah, I think you're good.
Just even
you would have
give us a
known by
call or
now.
emails or something, and we can double check. Any other questions?
Yeah, I did. We were really conflicted talking about the whole thing with extra care, but like in our heart, it's like we want you to know, if you're referring people to us, what to expect, what they're gonna hear when and that's why Suzanne went through the joy presentation. Like, it's important for you to know, like, what people are gonna hear.
Concerning the drug plan, would that affect TRICARE?
I don't know the answer to that, because I don't know how the Inflation Reduction Act bill reads with TRICARE, because it doesn't really
It's a government program.
It doesn't really work with us. Does that make sense? So I really haven't looked into that. Okay, I think that's it. So we do want to tell everybody thank you for coming. Make sure and grab your binder on the way out, the Legacy of Love. If you want to buy the kit, like the fireproof thing, we have 50 cases. That's all I brought, was 50 cases.
Yeah, I just want to say one final thing. I really appreciate everybody. You guys are great. We couldn't do this event without you here, so we really appreciate you all. So have a great day.